What if I told you that everything you've ever been taught about being rational is a lie? That the entire concept of reason versus emotion is nothing more than a comforting illusion we've created to feel superior to our own biology? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are not a rational being. You never have been, and you never will be. Every single decision you make, every thought you have, every choice you believe is logical, is fundamentally emotional. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can actually start living authentically. Let's break down this beautiful lie we've been sold. We're told that rational people make decisions based on evidence and logic, while emotional people let their feelings control them. We see images everywhere showing reason as the brain and emotion as the heart, as if they're separate entities battling for control. But this duality doesn't exist in reality. It's a fantasy, a myth we keep perpetuating because it makes us feel evolved, superior, civilized. Here's what rationality actually is. It's the quality of being guided by reason. And reason, it's simply a belief based on a certain degree of evidence. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's where it gets interesting. The real problem isn't rationality or reason. The problem is evidence itself, because evidence is always interpreted through an emotional lens. Think about it. Two people can look at the exact same scientific study and come to completely opposite conclusions. Why? Because the perception of evidence is inherently emotional. A pharmaceutical expert might read a clinical trial and reject it not because the data is flawed, but because deep down they have emotional biases they're not even aware of. Their training, their preferences, their worldview, all of that emotional baggage filters how they see evidence. This is why you have incredibly intelligent people who are complete deniers of obvious facts, and why you have educated professionals who fall for conspiracy theories. They're all being rational within their own frameworks. They all have reasons based on what they accept as evidence. The difference isn't intelligence. It's which emotions are driving their interpretation of reality. And here's the kicker that nobody wants to hear. When you're making a decision, when you're taking action, you're operating purely on emotion. The rational part? That comes after. Rationality is a spectator, not a player. It's the voice in your head that comments on what you're doing, but it's not actually controlling what you're doing. Have you ever given a presentation or a speech and suddenly felt like you were watching yourself from outside your body? Like you disconnected and became an observer of your own performance? That's the separation right there. That's rationality watching emotion work. Your emotional brain is producing the behavior, speaking the words, making the gestures. Your rational brain is just along for the ride, making commentary. This is why people freeze up during public speaking. They start becoming too rational, too self-aware. They shift from being the performer to being the critic. And suddenly they're judging every word, every pause, every breath. The emotion that was flowing naturally gets interrupted by rational overthinking. And boom, stage fright. The real conflict isn't between reason and emotion. It's between thinking and behaving. It's between who you plan to be and who you actually are when it's time to act. You can plan all you want. You can write down your goals, create your strategies, map out your perfect life. That's all rational thinking. But when the moment comes to actually do something, your emotional brain takes over. And all those plans mean nothing if your emotions aren't aligned. Here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. We live in a society that worships rationality while being driven entirely by emotion. We create these little echo chambers, these micro-narratives, where we can be internally consistent, even if we're completely wrong. We surround ourselves with people who validate our beliefs, and we call that being rational. We're not rational, we're just emotionally comfortable. This is the modern trap. We've empowered individuals to create their own realities, their own evidence, their own truth. Everyone can have a platform now. Everyone can build a following. Everyone can create a narrative that makes sense to their tribe. And within that tribe, they are rational. They have reasons. They have evidence. But step outside that bubble, and it all falls apart. The tragedy is that this worship of fake rationality is making us incapable of actual feeling. We're so busy performing our identities online, so obsessed with being consistent and coherent, that we've lost touch with genuine emotional experience. We check our phones to see how others react to us instead of checking in with ourselves. We've become spectators of our virtual personas instead of participants in our actual lives. So what's the solution? It's not pretty, and it's not easy. You have to embrace suffering. Not avoid it, not medicate it, not distract yourself from it. You have to lean into it with everything you've got. Most people experience a delay between their behavior and their suffering. They do something stupid, and the consequences come later. So they disconnect the two. They don't learn because the pain is too far removed from the action. But if you start paying attention, if you really observe your own behavior and its effects, that delay starts to shrink. You start suffering closer and closer to the moment of the bad decision. And yes, it gets worse before it gets better. 99% of people quit right there. The suffering becomes too intense, too immediate, and they run back to their comfortable delusions. But if you keep going, if you keep confronting that pain, something incredible happens. The suffering starts to come before the behavior. You start predicting it. You feel the pain before you even make the mistake. And that's when you finally gain control. That's when emotion truly conditions reason. That's when you actually change. This isn't about becoming more rational. It's about becoming more honest. It's about recognizing that you are an emotional creature living in an emotional world. And the only way to navigate it successfully is to stop lying to yourself about being above it all. You want to be rational? Stop chasing rationality. Start observing yourself without judgment. Become the spectator of your own life, not your Instagram profile. Do something that demands 110% of you. Something where winning or losing doesn't matter because you left everything on the field. That's where real learning happens. That's where emotion and reason finally align. The ancient Greeks had it right. They didn't worship logic. They understood that persuasion, performance, and presence were what actually moved people. We've come full circle, except now we're doing it through screens instead of in the forum. So here's my challenge to you. Stop pretending you're rational. Admit you're emotional. Observe yourself honestly. Embrace the suffering that comes with real change. And maybe, just maybe, you'll actually become the person you keep planning to be. Because at the end of the day, rationality without emotion is just words on a page. And emotion without awareness is just chaos. You need both, working together, honest about what they are. That's not being rational, that's being real.